Are we going to have you lead us in the pledge? Please rise to our pledge, led by Chief Mike Bayshore.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening and welcome to, it's been 3 weeks since our last Village Board of Trustees meeting. This is our first meeting for the month of August. And let us go straight to the minutes motion. Can I get a motion that the minutes of the July 22nd, 2024 meeting be approved? Trustee Condensa.
A second.
And Trustee Price Bush, discussion.
I'll abstain.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I as well, just to make a majority possible here. Opposed? Motion carries. It is time for a public hearing for proposed local law number 4 of 2024 for parades and processions. You want to hand me the notice? I'll read it for you.
Oh, sure.
No problem. Carla will be here in a few minutes. She just texted me.
Big print. Anyway. Not intentional.
The Village of Ballston Spa Board of Trustees meeting will be held in person in the lower conference room of the library and via Zoom at 7 p.m. on Monday, August 12, 2024. A public hearing on proposed local law number 4 of 2024 parade code will begin at 7:01 p.m. With login information. The Village of Ballston Spa Board of Trustees meeting will be held in person in the lower conference room of the library and via Zoom at 7 p.m. on Monday, August 12, 2024. Public hearing on proposed local law number 4 of 2024 will begin at 7 p.m. I think that's exact duplicate, just print it out twice.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was published, that much I can tell you. And as normal, 5 minutes per speaker. Anybody that wants to speak, if you're on Zoom and want to be heard, now would be a great time to raise your hand in that situation.
Zoom's not working. Yeah.
Zoom's not working.
I just got it.
Well, that's not very nice.
The Zoom that's up on your computer is different. It looks like something was updated. I can't see any of the participants other than you and you.
Even though we can see that on the.
No, I mean, as a participant. It lists the participants for me. There's just you and you. There's nobody from outside, inside,
That's a
in.
good point. Yeah, I only see 2 also.
It's saying you have another meeting in progress.
Oh, so maybe we have 2. All right.
Okay, so why don't we both end and then we both restart? Just as an FYI to those joining us, we already have approved our minutes 3-0, and I read the notice for public hearing, and their attorney magically appeared right as everything's going right. I think it's her fault that's going right now.
Oh, I'll take that.
There you go. But this is the time for anybody that would like to speak for the public hearing to raise your hand. We have not started that actually yet. You get 5 minutes per speaker. With respect to proposed local law number 4 of 2024, parades and processions. So please raise your hand now for anybody who wants to speak in-house. I see Liz Biddle's hand, and this is not just about Zoom this time, I doubt. Come on up.
Am I on here?
Yes, you are.
All right, Liz Biddle, 113 Fairground Ave. But I'm going to be asking some questions that the Ballston Spa Business and Professional Association has. These are from our officers. Well, kind of our comments, and you guys can't answer my questions, but that's okay. So under section 4, number 4, the facial coverings, we were wondering, since we work on the holiday parade in partnership with the village, will we need like some special permissions for like costume coverings or like winter gear coverings, or will that kind of be any kind of problem? Then under number 5, also under section 4, the barricades, it does mention about government officials have to place them, and last year, you guys know, we had the barricades on the sidewalks to help crowd control, and the company that we got them from put them there, and will that be a problem if we have them do that again? Then we have under section 4, number 15, the sidewalk blocking. We all know the sidewalks for the holiday parade get really packed. And do we need to somehow regulate the amount of people that are standing on those sidewalks? and who could help us do that if we need to do that. And then moving on to section 5, number 3, the sound producing and amplifying. We normally have a DJ at the park. He's playing music and saying announcements and that kind of thing. And will that be allowed? It does mention something about within 250 feet. Do we have to measure that out? Also section 5, number 4, under electricity. Is that going to apply to Westwell Park? Just again, because we have the DJ set up at the gazebo there. Under section 5, the fees, what will the fees be for the application? And then under number 9, in relationship to the floats, a couple of things. It mentioned about affidavits that the trailers for the floats, so to prove that they're in working order. We haven't had that before. So is there going to be a form that we have to fill out? Is there a license that somebody has to show? The participants have to show. Who's going to verify that? And also in relationship to the floats, just the materials restrictions are listed. We never had that before. Is somebody coming by to inspect the floats? Whose responsibility is that going to be? And then just a general comment about, who's going to monitor for, violations and that kind of thing. That's it.
One general thing I'm going to state is when you have a list that long of things,
Yeah.
set them ahead of time. It's going to just help
Okay, well,
everybody.
we just came up with this.
Okay,
a while ago.
but let's while you're here, might as well take them as we can.
Okay.
In general, the board has the right to waive anything in with respect to aspects of some of the things you were talking about, specifically the noise, and you also had, what else here, the facial covering for Halloween. Obviously, when you get a permit, you should be flagging that some of these things may be involved in those types of situations. The fencing or barricade requesting placement, or observation by DPW, actual placement yourself. Just give us the reason that will be happening inside that permit. This is as much this law to protect the business community as anything else, not to hassle the business community, as you know, based on what happened on August 5th, especially last year. I think you were talking about who's going to monitor certain aspects. We would ask that, again, if anything you have is going to be in quote violation of something in here, to flag what you need waived at that point in time. And the board would, in its approval, ensure provides proper allowance in those types of situations, specifically if it can be granted. So it seems like what you said was all simple stuff that is expected in certain unusual circumstances for true, let's call it parades per se. And so that's why. And anything you want to add on that, Madam Council? I got you here.
No, as I was just looking through the law, really, if there's an issue with it, the village clerk can flag it to the board. For example, the things you were talking about, Liz. But the purpose of this law is really just to help create a framework so that folks know when there's a parade, and it's not necessarily, the BSVP's parade. But anything like that, like Frank said, flag it. And the application has not been created yet. The fees have not been determined by the board yet. They have to pass the law and then they can determine the fees. It'll be done before December, I hope. But that's, those are just general ideas. And those are very good questions that, and I agree. If we could have that list too, that would be, unless she gave it to you.
Yeah.
That would be
I'll
excellent.
email it to you guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, there wasn't enough ahead of time to send this to you. So, but anyway. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
I have a point of clarification for Carla. Does it say in the law, I'm not sure if it says in the law that certain things can be waived. My reading was that there's an application, the clerk reviews the application and either approves it or denies it, and then the appeal goes to the board. I did not see a section or language that says certain aspects of the law can be waived, but maybe it's there and I didn't see it.
It's just a general point of law that the board has the right to waive things like this, waive permits, waive things in permits. If you want, we can put specifically in here that the board retains the right to review any if the clerk finds that there is something that needs to be waived, then that goes to the board. We can put that in there. That would not be a substantive change that would require a new public hearing. But just in general, you know, with laws that require permits and things of that nature, like a zone, like, you know, like zoning permits and you know, anything you get under a planning board, there's always a waiver. There's a potential for a waiver and you're allowed to do that. But if the board desires me to put it in there, I have no problem doing that.
I think that makes sense, that if there's some need for a waiver, that it would go to the board.
If you want to write a quick
approve.
section doing that, I don't think I don't see it as being substantive if it's a clarification point that it's present in this law as well. Would you agree with that?
Yes, as long as the board would like me to do that, I can do that while you talk.
I'm okay with clarification, basically, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could be considered substantive, but I'm happy that you're putting it in.
Okay.
Liz Cormos, 89 Hyde. My comments are basically, first of all, on definitions. When you say any procession of any kind, what defines a procession? Is it 3 people marching down the sidewalk with signs protesting something? Is it the senior parade, you know, with the kids hanging out of the cars, you know, that we do? I think you really need to, any public place, also what constitutes public places, any property owned by the village, includes sidewalks, any outside building, property, parks, etc. So if the group wanted to march around with, you know, within Wiswall Park, does that cover here? So I think some more clarification on definitions. I agree with some of the comments made earlier, particularly on section 4:15, sidewalks blocking. Share. You.
With respect to that, as you're walking, I do want to go back to that, Liz, both Liz's, I guess, in this case. Realistically, yes, you should be abiding by not blocking the sidewalk is the general law. And, you know, obviously, we don't pound on that, but there should probably be an aim to distribute pedestrian traffic or whatever better, because if there is an emergency, then either in a building or in the crowd, how do we get to somebody if we're completely, you know, 6 deep, 7 deep on that sidewalk? And so it's got to be something, maybe unintentionally, we kind of lean into something here that we probably should have been doing a little bit better along the way, ultimately, but we don't want to be blocking entrances ever or blocking sidewalks ever. This is just an extension of that to sort of define, hey, if you're asked to move, please move, ultimately, in a situation where you may be blocking it, whether intentionally or unintentionally in those situations. And so there might be things we have to discuss about how to better manage that overall for everybody's sake, but it is a safety issue. As Ray probably could tell you, trying to get to somebody is going to be the biggest thing if God forbid something bad happens. Sorry about that, Liz.
Okay, this diagram shows what 10-foot radius around entrances are. And, you know, how is this going to be enforced?
How wide are the sidewalks there?
The sidewalk is about 10 feet, you know, tough. So this is approximate, but I use Google Earth measurements, etc. So this shows that you would block most of, you know, this whole block if you enforce this. And even if, you know, do you intend to enforce this is the question.
The preamble is what matters here. And I'd say this in our emails back and forth on this as well. That preamble goes, no person or group of persons shall block any lawful use of the public sidewalk or any ingress to or egress from any building by, and then the 10-foot and the driveway stuff comes in. So you have to be blocking, essentially. If you're just standing there and there's sufficient room to go around somebody, there's no blocking going on, but that's your primary indicator. That's the general law as it stands right now. Don't block an entrance, don't block a sidewalk. We also went a little step further to make it, as I was just saying, into a compliance, non-compliance issue, because we're going to ask the owner of the building or the tenant of the building to be the one to say, hey, could you please move away from my entrance or move away from this area because you're blocking my sidewalk, blocking my entrance, or policeman. And so these are all kind of just indicators to say, hey, something bad is happening here that's generally against the law as it is, because you can't block an ADA pathway, as you know. And so we're getting a little specific
If
here.
it's
as to-
already covered in existing law, I don't see why you would need to put it in here. And it makes it sound like, you know, if somebody complains or, you know, to the police or whatever, you gotta clear a 10-foot wide egress and egress. And, you know, as we've seen in any of the parades here, that doesn't happen. There are also in bad weather, people are in the entrances to doors, etc. That's what happens during a parade.
But they can't be in the way of an entrance.
Well,
the
Correct.
right, I think the key is the definition, and you referenced the ADA is 5 feet, and so what trustee Raymond and I are advocating is that we stick with the definition of the ADA and the Department of Transportation, and just say that there's access if you're more than 5 feet or beyond that door. That allows people to stay on the sidewalk and not block the door according to the ADA. When you put in the 10 feet or distance equal to the width of the sidewalk in front of such point of egress, you're basically saying you have to get off the sidewalk is what you're saying. And that's not safe either, because you're putting people in the street. And it shouldn't be up to the property owner to determine who they like or don't like. If someone's in a public right of way, they have a right to be there if they're not blocking, and not blocking is defined as 5 feet or more.
If they're not blocking, there's nothing to move. It says it right in the
The
beginning.
definition we put in here, unfortunately, is 10 feet. It should be 5 feet.
Because, no,
Can
it's
I
actually,
finish my-
it's
my
actually,
5
excuse me one
minutes?
moment, please. It actually is on
I
right.
thought you're supposed to have the conversation after.
Yeah, that's what I
You're,
thought.
you're from here. Also
I know,
very
I'm
engaged,
saying
so-
for
No, I'm engaging because Frank is engaging.
No, I
That's why
understand,
I'm
but-
engaging.
Oh,
Otherwise, I would have
Fine,
stopped.
I understand that.
What is
We
the
can-
protocol?
we can-
Here we
Okay.
go.
The protocol is on the presiding officer, so thanks. The statement I'm gonna make is that the biggest issue ultimately we're trying to avoid is human shields being formed on a sidewalk to block entrances. And that happens. And so to prevent it, which can happen outside the ADA 5, as you call it, we basically want to make sure that the sidewalk area is free from that level of impediment, because it can and does happen.
There's always
Okay, but
already
I'd like
laws
to
to not
finish my
block.
statement. I think this piece and the lack of definitions is just leaving the village open for a lawsuit. Because if you don't apply it to everybody evenly, somebody is gonna come, and it might be a group we don't like. You know, and then we say, oh, you're blocking, you're, you know, et cetera, you're holding a march, whatever, you didn't get a permit. And then the next group, you know, can get waivers for this, waivers for that. You're just leaving yourself open. That's my feeling.
I like the high school, they're gonna get a permit for the parade. Flat out, they're gonna need one, and I'm sure they'll be happy to fill it out to do it ultimately. You know, like them or not, the scenario as you said, but it's about trying to be as consistent as possible and not based on speech or messaging ultimately. So, okay, anybody else in the house? Anybody in Zoom? And then can I get a motion to close this public hearing at 7:21 p.m.? Trustee Fandesa,
I'll second.
trustee Price Bush, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Since we're not at your presentation, we can now go to public comment on agenda items only. As usual, you spoke during public hearing about this, then we've already got your comments on the public law, local law. But anything else that is on the agenda, and that technically is fair game, but it's your 3 minutes, use them how you want. Again, let me just say, anybody on Zoom, this would be a time to raise your hand, and we will look for you after we get 1 or 2 comments in the house. Liz has her hand up.
Just Liz Cormos, 89 High. I just had 2 questions. One is, I noticed on the abstract that there was a bill for the proposed highway building design. I'd like to know where that's at, if they presented something that you can share.
It's in Lobella's possession.
You haven't seen it?
No.
Oh, Well, they've already billed for it. I would think you would have seen it.
No, we've had meetings with them, and so they billed us for the stuff that they've done to build up to a plan.
Well, looked like they finished it. And then this, agenda here says that there'll be, the fire protection contracts will be attached. And then you said it'd be provided today.
Stay tuned.
Okay, so they were going to be provided.
They came in after 6 today.
Thank you.
Anybody else? And anybody on Zoom? Seeing neither, let us move forward here. With respect to the consent agenda, there was a change to be made there. I applied this to the trustees concerning the streets because I apparently don't know up from down. And so what reads Low Street from Augie's Restaurant to West High Street should have been Augie's Restaurant to Front Street, not West High Street, so going the other direction. So apologies for that. With that change, is there anything that needs to be removed from your opinions from the consent agenda?
No.
Okay. Then can I get a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Baskin, trustee Fandesa, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve the, well, okay, hold on one second on these two. I'm going to flip over to D and E, and then we'll go back to ABC. How's that? Can I get a motion to approve the attached fiscal year 2024 closing budget transfers? Trustee Fandesa,
I'll second.
trustee Baskin, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion to approve the expenditure of $25,170 to Subsurface Technologies on an emergency basis for the upgrading of necessary infrastructure related to well 4A following their aqua-freed work on that well? Note the attached quote documents reflect the proposed expenditure that is lower than the requested amount, as the proposed expenditure relates to the replacement of additional pipes by request of Labella Engineers. Trustee Fandesa,
I'll second.
trustee Price Bush, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, with respect to the town of Ballston amendment that was sent around, and it's basically just an extension of the same thing from last year at $1 per thousand for fire protection there. The audit principles have remained intact. And we also had, aside from this, an agreement by email, or at least an acknowledgement that when they give us money in 2024, it applies to fiscal year 25 of the village, because our fiscal years are offset. And okay. So
It's a weight loss comment, sorry.
it's exciting, whatever it is. So we are going to vote on that now if possible. Can I get a motion to approve the can I get a motion to approve the 2024 fire protection contract amendment for the agreement between the Village of Ballston Spa and the town of Ballston, and authorizing the mayor to execute the agreement? The amendment.
Motion.
Trustee Fandesa,
I'll second.
trustee Price Bush, discussion.
Yeah, I don't know that how many of us have been able to read that. I certainly wasn't able to read it. So I think when things come in after 6 p.m., this goes for motion B as well. The day of the meeting, that unless there's some emergency, that we should wait to enable all of us to read and consider and discuss the contracts prior to voting on them. So I'm asking us to defer till for the next meeting, the table till the next meeting, unless there's some time restriction.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm gonna abstain.
And I. Opposed? Abstention?
Yeah, I'm abstaining.
Okay, by the opinion of the chairs, it's of the chair, it is 3-0 to 1, which is 3-1 for vote purposes, and the amendment is approved. With respect to Milton, how do you want to handle it?
That's a loaded question,
I know.
Mr. Mayor. I'm gonna use yours now. Hold on. I can give an update.
The intention is to go 96 cents again as collected by the town of Milton. We already have half the check that can't cash it because we don't have the contract in place. They are going to be providing the foreign fire money ASAP that they should have provided, and we're waiting for that check as well. We'll talk more in Treasurer's report about foreign fire coming up. But there's just questions about how to get the more clingy final points about audit, et cetera, taken care of with respect to town of Milton. And so if you want to go from there.
Sure. The general substance of the agreement is agreed upon. The cost for the year, like you said, the town did provide the village with a check. However, the village is unable to cash that check because there's no contract. So legally, we can't do that. Legally, they shouldn't have given it to us because to the village because there is no contract. Today, Attorney Craig and I went back and forth probably 10 or 15 times via email with respect to language. It's really just language having to do with the audit that the village wants to provide, all the financials that we're required to provide under the town law. It is the town law, 184. After we get the final audit, the town wants all of the information, bank statements, everything. We're trying to come to a resolution on that. So it's really not, I mean, that's where we're stuck for here. It's really not the cost. It's really not the year. It's really just this one tiny paragraph for the village board. It's paragraph 3A and 3B that they're really contesting today, even though we've explained to them that they're actually getting more protection and more information from us than they would be getting if we adopted their language. So that's where we are with that. The problem is that, you know, the contract is supposed to be January 1 through December 31. And Ben, to your point, where's the rush? We're holding it, the village is holding a check for hundreds of thousands of dollars. The village fire department is providing fire service without a contract, similar to union folks working without a contract. There's just no contract, and under the law, there has to be a contract to provide fire protection. I'm not sure what the board wants to do here. We have like I said, it's really just this one section, and you all have the section. And, you know, Ben, I appreciate where you were, but it literally came together today at about 5 o'clock. So I could not get it to you before 6 o'clock. So it's up to the board. I think that you should perhaps.
Well, I was going to propose a motion with the general terms to be in it and request authorization after your approval type of situation. If there was interest in going in that direction, ultimately. Yeah. Let me propose a motion then and see where we want to do it. Can I get a motion to permit the mayor to execute contract between the town of Milton and the village of Ballston Spa for 2024 fire protection after review and approval by the village attorney? The terms that must be in the contract for the mayor to execute it include 96 cents per $1,000 of assessed value being the rate, a reasonable audit principle, and anything else that should be required?
Well, do you want it to say, because it right now doesn't say the 96. It just says this definite sum of 559,823.
Well, it's going to be, if that's not 96 cents per thousand and they collect it, I'd like to know where the rest is. So I'm going to stay on 96 cents per thousand and they can account for what's going on if that's the case. And any other terms that you think are specific, and terms that are otherwise consistent with the agreement between the town and the village from 2019 to 2023.
Yes. Yep, that's fine.
Anybody want to make that motion? Trustee Condensa,
I'll
Can we
second.
amend,
Trustee Price Bush.
can we amend the motion?
You can propose an amendment of the motion
Propose
now.
amendment to say, upon approval, upon a review and approval of village board. You said a review and approval of village attorney and the
You don't
village.
trust our attorney?
The village board hasn't even, no, what the proper process is for us to review the
I think you mean,
contract.
yes, you do, but no, that's not what you mean.
Your wording was upon review and approval of village attorney, as if it's not even necessary for the village board to review and approve. And what I'm saying is, before the attorney reviews and approves, the village board, or at least after the attorney reviews and approves, the village board should review and approve. We haven't had a chance to review. You're not, you know, even in the wording, you're not sure what's in it, what's out of it, what should be in it, what should be out of it. The amendment you just made on the fly may not be exactly what's needed. This is not a good way to run the village. We should not be getting, I don't blame anyone that we got this at 6:19 today. But because we did, I think it requires that we either delay this for next meeting, and it's been months already, so 2 weeks won't matter, or at least the motion includes that we review and send approval between meetings.
And so that is proposal for an amendment. The person that made the motion was trustee Fontaine.
I do not accept, and here's why. Carla's been doggedly fighting on the village's behalf on this. If you've read through all the emails between the attorney and I mean, there's been a ton of emails, so.
I haven't seen much recently. I haven't.
Oh, goodness, there are a ton of emails. Please go back.
Anyway, I'm not
Carla's-
blaming Carla.
No, but what I'm saying, I don't see it as necessary because Carla has been doggedly defending and, fighting for the village's, interest in this. So I truly trust her to ensure that the terms are beneficial and positive for our village and for our fire department. We need to move forward.
We're the elected officials.
So the amendment was rejected, now discussion on the motion itself.
Again, this is not a good way to run the village. We should have time to review contracts before we actually vote on it. It's a very simple concept.
Can I get a roll call vote on this one?
Trustee Price Bush.
Yes.
I'm all out of balance here.
Sorry.
Trustee Von Danza,
Yes.
trustee Baskin,
I'm gonna abstain.
Mayor Rossi,
Is yes, it's 3-0 to 1 again, 3-1 for the purpose of voting. The motion carries. We have two other motions before I get to public or local law. You want to word the Kona Ice one?
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I
no,
know.
no. What did we have?
Can I get a motion permitting the Kona Ice vendor as part of the Ballston Spot Business and Professional Association's Farmers Market to park on the street side adjacent to Wiswall Park on Front Street during the farmers market hours?
That's simple.
I think that's
All
about
right, I'll
it.
make that motion.
Trustee Fontaine,
I'll second.
trustee Price Bush, discussion.
Is this procedure within our parks
Yeah.
or parking?
We just had to approve it.
We just have to approve it
Yeah.
and we can put in a waiver in this case, and it won't block traffic, it'll just block a couple
If
spaces.
it's on Front Street, it's spaces, yeah. If it was on Low Street, it could have blocked if it was going out, but it's backside out.
This, I'm just looking at my emails. This was all discussed amongst you folks back at the end of July, beginning of August.
All in favor?
Right.
Opposed, motion carries. Can I get a motion approving emergency work to be performed on Mechanic Street between Kent Street and Ford Street to repair and rehabilitate the partial road collapse on Mechanic Street? The work will be performed by Evolution Construction Services LLC, and the authorization for this motion is not to exceed $20,000 unless the board approves further authorization by email.
I'll make that motion.
Trustee Fontaine,
I'll second.
trustee Price Bush, discussion. Are you okay with the wording? As I, yeah.
Yes, I'm fine with it.
What are the chances it's gonna go above? Is it
It
very?
was supposed to be 17, or they're using the Malta contract. I'll tell you a little bit more about some stuff we probably need to be doing after this. But they were working out the Malta contract pricing, which is usually within the realm. So that's why I'm trying to get a little touch factor here, but not too much touch factor for it. And the proposed method is to basically uncap the road and cavern area, use crusher run, tamp every foot basically, so it's nice and compact underneath, and replace the road so that there is no more cavern at all underneath there. Okay, and flowable fill would have been $31,000, yeah, versus the $17,000 on an estimate. So this is why this is going to be the preferred method for Evolution to go. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Time for local law number 4, if you'd like, and
Not up to me. I'm not the
I,
official.
well, in terms of it's up to you to move us forward with it. How's that?
That's fine. If,
Want to drive it?
yep, we can. The board all has, and has had for a little while, all the seeker documents with respect to this. As you know, you have to perform seeker with respect to a local law. And so you have before you parts 1, 2, and 3 of the short form EAF. I have, as usual, taken the liberty of identifying that there is no or small impact with respect to the adoption of the law. If that is the board's decision, we can move on. If the board would like me to read each of the 11 questions and answer them, I can do that as well.
I think we were all willing to pass on that.
All right, yeah, we will have a chance to discuss the law further, correct?
This is just the seeker. Yeah, you'll be able to discuss the law once the motion is made and then seconded, and then there's discussion on the motion,
Okay.
like.
Should the
normal
resolution be
procedure.
read, or should a motion for a negative declaration be,
I'm not there yet.
I'm sorry.
You told me I could run it.
Right?
Sorry. The board also has before it part 3 of the EAF, which has the paragraph indicating why it is a negative declaration. If the board is in agreement with that, is this board's desire to issue a negative declaration?
Yeah.
Okay. The motion for a negative declaration is within the resolution. However, if the resolution is not going to be passed tonight, I would anticipate that perhaps we do a motion now to resolve that the board will issue a negative declaration under seeker.
All right, I'll make the motion.
Trustee Baskin,
Negative declaration.
trustee Fandesa, discussion. Roll call.
Trustee Price Bush.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Trustee Von Denza.
I rocked your world today, didn't I?
Really did. Trustee Baskin.
Yes.
Mayor Rossi.
Yes, 4-0. The negative declaration motion is approved. Continue.
Okay, you all have before you the resolution to adopt the local law. I'm happy to read it. I'm happy to have Terry read it. I'm happy to have Frank read it. I'm happy to waive the reading of it and until you get to the resolved paragraphs.
I am willing to waive. Waive.
All right.
Do we want to
Reading
wait,
the whole law?
waive the whereas clauses?
Oh.
No, you're not, we're not, oh, I'm not reading the whole law. No, waive the reading of the resolution. Basically, how many pages does that have, Mary? The first page and a half of the resolution and reading only the resolved paragraphs.
That's fine.
So I can read if you want the resolved paragraphs.
Go ahead.
It's fine, there's 3 of them.
Okay.
I
I get so lucky. I always have to read them.
got nothing for you.
Yep.
Therefore, be it resolved that the board hereby adopts local law number 4 of 2024, which adds the chapter as stated above. The chapter is chapter 149, parades and processions. Be it further resolved, the board adopts and authorizes the filing of a negative declaration, which you just did. And be it further resolved, the board hereby authorizes the village clerk and the attorney for the village to make such minor modifications to the local law documents as they deem necessary, and thereafter are directed to execute and file the said documents as required by law and to take all of the necessary action for the promulgation thereof.
To make a minor amendment within the law itself, is this the time to make it before we make this motion or inside the motion? To add the language about the board having the authority to waive aspects for permit purposes.
We can do it within the motion.
Okay, anybody want to make the motion related to that resolution?
Motion.
Trustee Fandesa,
I'll second.
trustee Price Bush, discussion. Now, out of fairness, let me just suggest that I would I'd like to add that amendment as we had all basically agreed to de facto earlier regarding, did you write one out?
I did. Would you like me to read it?
Please do.
It is under section 10, which is currently entitled issuance. I've now not entitled it issuance and waiver. It is a second paragraph and it states as follows. If an applicant requests a waiver from one or more of the requirements set forth in this chapter, such request shall be presented to the Board of Trustees for determination. The board shall have the authority in its sole discretion to grant such a waiver. Actually, that will say to grant or deny such a waiver. The board may exercise this authority when such requirements are found not to be necessary or reasonable in the interest of the public health, safety, or general welfare, or are inappropriate to a particular application.
And in your opinion, that is just reiterating a general point that would have been in there, but we're just stating it in black and white essentially, and therefore not substantive.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Well, I disagree, but I'm happy to have it in. I think it is a substantive difference, but I like.
So noted your feeling on that. Anything else you want to discuss at this point? Okay.
Well, about the whole law as a whole, or just this amendment? What?
Okay, well, good point. Do you accept the amendment?
Yes.
Mary, do you accept it as the second? Okay, the amendments have been, or the amendment has been approved for consideration inside this motion. Ben?
Yes,
Go, no, I'm saying, what do you have now?
Oh, for the law as a
I think
whole?
you
So
want to talk.
we don't need to vote on this amendment?
No,
It's part of the resolution. I'll say as amended.
Yes. Oh, well, one thing I want to make clear, because it wasn't clear to me till a few days ago, is that this law does not, and I conferred with our attorney on this law does not apply to, say, demonstrations or picket lines, people just standing on a corner holding a sign for one cause or another. Is that correct? As long as they're not blocking the sidewalk. That right? According to our email exchange?
Correct.
Okay. So, so if someone wants to hold a sign on a street corner, if a union wants to, as they've done in this village, picket against the county, because they're on, I don't know if they're on strike, but they're in contract negotiations, things like that. No permission is required. You can just go and stand and demonstrate as long as you're not causing a nuisance or blocking the sidewalk. And if I'm saying anything correct, please let me know.
Well, I'm going to look and find what I wrote to you yesterday.
I have
Just
it.
to
I
make
have it too.
well, I'll
You can read your.
just to make sure that everybody understands and it's all.
Right.
Hang on, I gotta go through all today's emails. All yesterday's emails. These guys work on Sundays, by the way. I'm just letting you all know, the Sunday before a board meeting, they're all working. Which actually is a testament to them.
I do have it here, or at least part of what you have here.
Oh, I have the entire thing.
Okay.
So I guess the question you raised was about demonstrations. I guess picketing if you're in one spot, not if you're moving along and you're processing. That is the right to peaceably assemble under the United States Constitution. The village has the right to institute reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions. And that's what the intent of the parades and processions law is, as you saw in section 1. People are allowed to stand in place. They are allowed to have a demonstration, provided they do not violate any law. Village law is written, follows the Supreme Court's decision, allowing the government to institute reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions. Everyone in the village is required to abide by state, county, village laws. If there is a demonstration or a picket that violates village laws, such as curfew, noise, peddling, soliciting, parks, etc., or any county or state laws, including unlawful assembly under the penal law, there is enforcement, and that is done by the police department. The enforcement has to be content neutral. You cannot go after one group because you don't like what they say and not go after another group. That's a fundamental constitutional right. There's nothing in this law that prohibits that, nor can there be anything in this law that prohibits that fundamental constitutional right.
Thank you.
Right, so that is very helpful, and I don't know that it was obvious to people. It wasn't obvious to me, and I think it wasn't obvious to others. So thanks for clarifying that, that you can stand and picket or whatever, and you don't need a permit for that. So I'd also like to, before I forget, I do think we should get back to the procedure of not scheduling a public hearing until the law is ready to be presented to the public, because as the BSBPA representative clearly demonstrated there wasn't enough time to look at the law and submit comments. And it really does our public a disservice not to have a draft law in place 2 weeks ahead, at least for a public hearing. And also, it's not clear that it's appropriate to be making a lot of changes between meetings. So
Just
I hope we get
to
back
clarify,
that.
Ben,
Yeah.
the law requires only a 5-day notice to be put in the paper. So even if the law was done 6 months ahead of time, the notice in the paper would not be put in until 5 days before, because you're not allowed to put it in, a whole lot before that. Just,
You
I
can't put
appreciate
it
what
in
there's a
when it's
specific,
approved the 2 weeks before.
no, I think it's 10 and 5. You can't, it's a outer
Right.
inner requirement.
Right. Would you say it's more correct procedure, though, that if there are changes to the law, that it should be done in a public meeting versus between meetings, or it really doesn't matter at all?
There were no changes to this law as of when it was put into quote unquote final draft mode
In other words,
5 days ago, I think it was.
there were changes between when a vote was taken to schedule this public hearing and when this law was actually finalized a few days ago. And so you actually, Mr. Mayor, have said that we should only make these changes at meetings. We typically we've gotten way away from that. I don't know what the proper procedure is. We've done both. I assume they're both legal, but it's certainly more transparent to discuss the final version of law at a public meeting.
Not for nothing, Ben, this was supposed to be on for public hearing last meeting, and because you didn't get your comments in on time about your concerns about a couple of things, we actually had to kick it to this meeting in the first place.
Actually, that's not true.
Yeah,
My comments were in about a month ago, and I repeated. It wasn't the first time that I
We
repeated
were
those
not
comments.
sure what the comments were in the prior meeting.
You
We
might not
asked
have
you.
been. I
Okay, well-
repeated the comments I made earlier, so don't go pointing fingers.
Nonetheless, we delayed this once already, and it was time to move this forward
So
at this point.
but in general, because this is happening this is like becoming the pattern, we are setting public hearings with a very draft law in place. And according to you, we really should have a final law.
And because we were in draft form the previous time, we didn't go forward with public hearing. We have done that twice now in a row. And again,
Yeah.
if you don't want me to point fingers, I'm not gonna point fingers further at this point, but that happened with the parking law and that happened with the parades law, that we had to
Right.
basically whiff on a public hearing date to just schedule it again on the next one.
Because it wasn't ready, because we scheduled the date before the thing was done.
No, because I was waiting for comments to get finalized so that we were in a position to feel that we had a chance to get something out within the 5 days.
Typically, all of us provide comments except you, who waited till the day before or the day of the comments, when the comments were. You waited till Wednesday.
I provided handwritten comments on this entirety.
Well,
and
not
then
to the
gave-
rest of us.
I
but
gave final comments on
Wednesday.
the concerns of Bernadette, because Carla asked us to give one final pass on those comments.
Your
Ben.
comments came in Wednesday when the final draft was due. So anyway, I think we should get back to having a final draft when we're scheduling the public hearing, if at all possible. The other thing I'd like to speak to is the sidewalk blocking clause. That continues to be a problem because it is outside the standards and norms of what is defined as blocking by the state, by the federal law, ADA. It should be 5 feet. I have an email from Trustee Raymond that he's asked me to read because he couldn't be here. He said, people who have done decades of research, experts in the field with far more experience and knowledge than we have, created a standard of 5 feet as reasonable access. I'm at a loss on the continued resistance to simply adopt existing standards. This means, as Ben stated, this means people could be asked to move into the streets during parades. That is unsafe policy. Let's take the experts who created the standards advice on this. People are allowed to occupy public property and right of way, except when the law prohibits all people from occupying that space, not just the ones we like. The law would violate the constitutional right of assembly, and we define what a legitimate complaint would be to enforce and by whom. If it is only the establishment owner being affected that can legitimately file a complaint, then we are allowing businesses to strip citizens of their constitutional right of assembly, and we create an inequality within our residents. We already have a loitering law in the books, I imagine. If not, then that is the appropriate thing to do here. We cannot cherry pick to whom the law applies. We cannot cherry pick enforcement either. A law that allows this is inherently unconstitutional. Also, it has been stated that 10-foot rules are compromised from 15 feet. Where did 15 feet come from? Certainly not in any state standards I could find. So it is based on a standard. Is it based on a standard at all? I would rather have something easily defensible that has decades of research behind it by multiple state and federal agencies than something that may just have been a copy paste without research to back it up. So I think he said it all.
Just for the information of folks watching and here, we responded to his email. So if you're going to read that, then read all the responses that came in after that, such as the 15-foot margin was actually taken from another code, if I remember correctly. So this whole idea that it's not done this way elsewhere is incorrect. And again, the thing that's being guarded against, first off, we don't want human shields to be formed outside of the normal 5-foot rule. And these do happen. What happened on August 5th last year could have led to that based on some of the conduct and some of the stuff that was going on in that situation. And that shouldn't be permitted. Second, to suggest people can be pushed out into the street is completely erroneous. The idea in the back of it, the idea in the back and forth that I had with Liz Biddle earlier was, hey, in parades generally, this should be the case that you're not blocking an ADA access scenario in the sidewalk. And we've got to maybe identify ways to get that to happen better in the future for everybody's sake. That's just safety and protection, health, safety, and welfare. And let's have that dialogue for sure to make sure we can manage that better. But the idea that we're going to push them into the street, we're not using 10 feet universally. We're using the sidewalk width as the limit in general. Where there's no sidewalk or the sidewalk exceeds 10 feet, it's 10 feet. So it's not a universal 10 feet that's pushing people into a sidewalk type scenario.
It says 10 feet or side width, which means you're pushing them off the sidewalk.
Whichever is less, and they have to be blocking an entrance or the sidewalk.
But the blocking is defined by 10 feet or the sidewalk.
No, it's not.
width.
That is an indicator if they are to presume to be blocking in the first place. That is an indicator. Just like targeting in football, we have indicators.
Indicator. It says, no person or group shall block any lawful use of public sidewalk or any ingress or egress from any building by A, standing on any sidewalk within 10 feet of the point of ingress.
You can't block something by doing A, B, or C. But
we have this definition of anything within 10 feet.
The preamble is you can't block. If you're not blocking, then the prerequisite isn't met in the first place to even discuss it further. At that point.
Says by you may not
block by doing these three
by
things.
Standing on any sidewalk.
It doesn't say
10 feet.
it does not say
Right
universally you are blocking by standing on a sidewalk. It's saying you can't block somebody's entrance or a sidewalk by doing one of these three things. That's the thing you keep missing on this. It's not banning standing on a sidewalk, it's banning blocking a sidewalk or blocking a point of ingress or egress.
The way we define blocking is within 10 feet or sidewalk width. That's what we put in writing here as the definition of blocking.
Chief Bush seems to understand it just fine in my discussion with him on the back and forth on this. He and I walked through the scenarios and he seems to understand what we mean by this.
Does it mean 10 feet or not?
It means you can't block a sidewalk or an entrance. And if you are forming a human shield within 10 feet of that entrance, essentially on the sidewalk or on the sidewalk itself, then yeah, you're blocking at that point.
So should we put in the words human shield?
Can I just read the rest of the sentence that people seem to not see? It says that you cannot block a lawful use of a public sidewalk or an ingress to or egress from any building by A, standing on any sidewalk within 10 feet of the point of ingress to or egress from any building, or if the sidewalk is narrower than 10 feet in width, a distance equal to the width of the sidewalk in front of such point of ingress or egress, comma, and this is the point I think people are missing here, after being asked to move from such area by the property owner or tenant of the building or their employee or other designee or the police. So they cannot block it And the person that decides that is if they've been asked to move. So if I'm just standing on a sidewalk and I haven't been asked to move by anyone, I'm not blocking any lawful use. That's what it says in there. So I think that was missed there. That part right there was missed because it puts the impetus on the property owner, the building owner, the tenant, the police to say, hey, could you scooch over? You're blocking. If someone doesn't come up and say that, they're not blocking. That's how I understood it was going to be written. That's how I drafted it.
So I think what Trustee Raymond's point was, and which I agree with,
That point came before the fixes, actually, so I'm not sure how relevant it is without him here.
is that a public right of way, no one can tell someone else to get off a public right of way if they're not blocking something. It's not, you don't have the right to tell someone to move if they're not blocking your entrance.
Under the Constitution, you have the right to peaceably assemble, and under the Constitution and the U.S. Supreme Court, the village as a municipality has the right to place reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions on a constitutional right. This is a reasonable time, place, and manner restriction by saying you have the right to, we're not saying you don't have the right to stand there, you don't have the right to picket, you don't have the right to do whatever you're doing right there. But if you are asked to move, you are on notice under the law that is a reasonable time, place, and manner restriction on the property.
And what I'm saying, what Sean is saying, is that it is not reasonable for a property owner, just because they don't like what someone is saying, to tell them that they need to move further than 5 feet away from their door.
So what happens, Ben, at the end of the day, you call the police show up and say, oh, this person's on the edge of the sidewalk, not blocking anybody, and they're giving free access to the sidewalk for ADA purposes. There's no violation, there's no crime being committed.
Why write a law that is not going to be enforced then? So I'd like to,
It seems like the enforcement is not the law, it's the 5 versus 10.
That
seems, if this said 5, would you agree with the law?
yes.
So it really isn't the law itself, it's the 5 versus 10. Correct?
Yeah, that
Okay.
is exactly what we've been arguing, is 5 is the ADA definition of access. And when we have our outside dining law, we allow tables to be within 5 feet of an entrance because we acknowledge that is the standard, and you're not blocking anything if you're 5 feet or more. My concern is that people have the right to be on a sidewalk without blocking something, and just because a property owner doesn't like them, they shouldn't be able to tell them, get off my sidewalk.
But that argument doesn't work with your 5 versus 10. That's why I want to know. That's why I want to understand.
I'm calling a timeout.
Sidewalks.
Calling a timeout.
Anyway, all right, I've said what I.
Bernadette has been waiting for about 20 minutes at this pace. Yeah, go ahead.
I have probably been one of the more stringent ones on this section. I truly think that if you're not blocking, if you're following, a sort of conduct that allows for you to have your freedom of speech, of course, you have every right to be on the sidewalk. What instances I'm concerned about and why I had fought for more distance, but when I look back at my family's business on the holiday parade, right, we have folks that sometimes might block our business. So we've kindly said, can you make sure there's room for people to get in and out of the business storefront? And everybody has been like, oh yeah, sure. And in most cases too, for the holiday parade, the Memorial Day parade, folks are lining up at the edge of the sidewalk anyway. They want to get candy, most likely, or see, Santa. I'm not foreseeing this being such an issue in those cases. I think what I'm hearing, and I wish I understood a little bit earlier in this process, that you're concerned about folks who might be doing picketing for labor issues. It sounds like it. It sounds like it. I'm just
wanting a ceasefire in Gaza.
Okay, could be that too. But they have every right to practice and speak and share their viewpoint. What they do not have a right to do is block a business, block an entrance, make it an unsafe situation. So it has less to do about the particular topic. No topics mentioned in this section of the law or the proposed law. So it has less to do with your viewpoint. It has more to do, are you making it unsafe for that business? Are you making, or a resident, if it's a residence, Are you making it impossible for them to operate as a business? They have a right to also operate and have folks freely come in and out of their business without the interference of folks exercising their freedom of speech. As far as it goes with the dining, that is an orderly process. We tell people where they can be within a certain amount of feet. 5 feet, but require permit, but there's a whole bunch of other processes. So I don't think they're exactly equivalent in this situation. So again, no one's saying someone can't speak up for their beliefs in Palestine. No one's saying you can't picket and say someone's not a good employer. All we're saying is stay at a reasonable distance. And if you're asked, no one's saying you can't get closer. It's just in the case when you're making it impossible for an entrance to be safe or accessible by customers and actual property owners. So I think that the concerns are a little unfounded. It's already kind of outlined in the way Carla wrote it, or at least made the edits. So I think we have enough to move forward without folks feeling that their freedom of speech is going to be impeded by this one section. So I'd like to continue and move forward.
I guess I have a question about the reason for the 15-foot. Do we have any rationale from these other places?
When I draft a local law, as you're aware, I try to reinvent the wheel, which I think is something that you appreciated in one of your emails. And so I go and I look at a whole host of different laws or of villages around here, towns around here. I look at what NICOM has on their database that I have access to. I put together a skeleton. I present it to the board and I ask the board to tailor it to this village. I don't go through and go, where did you get this particular thing from? Where is that 15 feet from? I put it in. I put something in about the hydrants for the parking. It was from another place. It was tagged. That's not appropriate here. We change it. So when you ask where the 15 feet was, I have no idea which municipality it came from, Ben. I probably looked at 10 or 15 laws. It was in there. It's been changed. I don't know what else to say.
Right. So we have no idea why or if that works or if it was a typo or anything else. So
I don't think it was a typo. It's a law.
We don't need to defend the 15-foot rule that has no rationale behind it other than cut and paste something into our law. And the 5 feet law, the 5 feet rule.
Insulting now, Ben. I would say we're at a point to call the question.
The 5-foot rule is established standard, and we shouldn't pass a law that is by design going to be capriciously enforced for some people, not the memorial parade, not the Christmas parade, not if you like the person, but yes, if you don't, and you'll push them off the sidewalk.
Last pass coming up for anybody that has a comment here, because it feels like we have beaten the dead horse proverbially, Bernadette.
I'd like to call a question. Let's move forward on this.
Maybe else with anything.
I'm fine. Thank you for asking.
And you're,
I'm good.
okay. Roll call vote, please. As amended, again, as amended.
Trustee Price Bush,
Yes.
trustee Bondanza,
Yes.
trustee Baskin,
I'm gonna say no, just because of the 10-foot rule.
Mayor Rossi.
Yes. It is 3-1 in this case, and the local law carries. Thank you very much.
Just to let everyone know, the Department of State seems to be, for whatever reason, backed up. We're still waiting for them to file the parking law from 2 months ago. So this law, while it is, drafted and adopted, it won't be in effect until the Department of State files it. They don't have to approve it. They just have to literally hit the file button, but they're months behind. So I just want to get the board and the public aware that, follow it, but it's not in law yet.
Can I ask a point of clarification? Just there's something that says a safety plan comment is required by the New York State Department of Health must also be included in the application. I Googled that. I could not find. Is there some form that we should be
For over
linking to?
5,000.
Only for okay.
That's what it says. Yep.
And that goes to the Department of
It
Health.
says 5,000 in the paragraph before, but
Yep.
maybe in this because the section has multiple sections, some of which apply to 5,000, some don't. And for D, just to clarify, you might want to add for 5,000 or more.
And the safety plan is not required by the Department of Health. It's required by the Department of State.
Oh, Department of State. Okay, so is there a link to that?
I'm sure I can provide a link, but once we will, I think what we can do is when I work with Larry, when I work with Terry, wow.
Hey, Larry.
When I work with Terry, I'm preparing the application. We can make sure that we have the safety plan in your office so that anyone can have it.
Perfect.
That'd be good. And again, I wasn't sure when I read it if it applied to the 5,000 or everybody.
Mayor's announcements time? Yes, please. It's been pretty interesting last week, to say the least, around the village. And so let's kind of recap here. Friday, before the rains really started coming down, as you know, by now, Mechanic Street had a partial collapse in what was, according to some, it was called Mill Race. It connected somehow Mill Pond to the old mill and providing water to it. And apparently people on my Facebook page are talking about how they used to swim in that zone and see this 8-foot pipe and everything else. And their parents would tell them never to go into the pipe, probably for good reason. But at some point that ceased to exist as a water carrying structure. And it just was never closed off as a cavern. And there apparently were rail lines that went through in some form or another as well. So Mechanic Street, you can learn the hard way. We did, in case we didn't know, is an interesting street with infrastructure. Unfortunately, every so often that works against you. And as the driveway transition was being looked at, apparently by J&R Propane had noticed some shifting going on, and as they ran a bobcat into that zone, boom, things started crumbling. And so that's when they called us. We looked at it. We said, okay, this is interesting, and took a picture of what looks to be really a pristine cavern underneath. It's crazy how well put together the whole thing was still underneath. So structurally, overall, it's pretty good. Unfortunately, there was a vulnerability somewhere, and as things are by water, things move a lot. And so probably some shifting did occur. But long story short, we need to eliminate that cavern at this point. You've heard us approve the emergency funding for the fix that will be taking place, I think, tomorrow. Evolution is going to be able to get there. And I want to thank them again for showing up the day of, pulling a street drill out of Granville. The owner and his son came out themselves and started drilling holes in so we would have access to see what was going on. This leads us to another thing altogether. We had to take about 3 days to get in a position to declare an emergency, closing the entire loop with Labella, saying, yeah, it's an emergency, suspend your normal procurement policy by our recommendation, everything else. We need to get to a point where we actually have somebody procured for emergency purposes like these and that can act immediately. And that normally takes an RFP process. Evolution actually does this, I think, with Malta. They do a 2-year RFP scenario where you know what your rates are going to be for the work generally, and that's kind of where he's getting pricing for what we're going to pay for the $17,000+ for filling in. And so stay tuned. We'll probably be going that route of getting an RFP together and awarding an emergency roadway infrastructure contract to, it might not be Evolution for all we know, but they are helping us get an example of what this looks like with Malta's document. And so we can move forward with it. So again, we learn the hard way sometimes, but we want to learn nonetheless and get this right, because you know, we're thankful that nobody got hurt here. We kind of laugh about it now, kind of looking at the whole situation and thinking about all the memories people had with it. But again, somebody could have gotten badly hurt in that situation, and we're fortunate that didn't happen. I would assume that the road will remain closed until later this week. Exactly when, it'll depend on when repaving occurs once the crusher run is fully tamped in and we get a new crown on that road at that point in time. So you move from Friday to Friday morning to Friday evening, and the heavens opened up, and my God, how much rain fell in about a 2-hour period, or not even. I was driving down to Clifton Park to pick up something at Staples, and I don't even know how I saw the road. Water to the wheelbases of people on I-87. I can only imagine what Route 50 looked like back in the village when this was starting to go on. And I know that we had a lot of flooding in the normal usual suspect locations that we're always looking at, trying to figure out better ways to get. But I have to say that no matter what kind of system we have, it would have failed just about in the instant and then caught up with itself. Welcome to what Florida goes through in every hurricane, basically, because they have no drainage down there. Our drainage system has some weak points, some strong points, but ultimately, when I drove back through, not even an hour after the rain stopped, Route 50 was fine. Some standing water in certain places generally, but we did pretty well. We were lucky. We didn't lose power like a lot of areas did, especially in Warren County. I noticed had thousands of people out up there. So, partial success, partial, concern, obviously, from that. We moved to Saturday, and we got to actually enjoy life a little bit. And we had a great opening day for the Kelly Park improvements and celebration of things that already were done, talked about things that are going to continue to be done, and to see people out there Saturday night during Swimming Under the Stars, and Sunday, Scott Kearns with DPW actually texted me to say, I just saw 4 kids out there playing basketball. That really hit me hard in a good way to say that we did something really right there. I'm glad we could do something to give our kids an option, because we take a little flack that the village sometimes isn't a strong area for teens or whatnot, even with BACC, their Embark and everything else. And I think this is just one more example of, yes, we may not be perfect. We may not have every alternative they want. And we lean on the schools to a certain degree to provide a certain amount too. But I think this is just the perfect complement for what we're trying to achieve here, to be family friendly in every possible way. And so thank you to DPW. Thank you to Saratoga County for that fence money that we talked about, to Evolution for the service they had provided, to Pompa's Brothers for the asphalt, and dedicating it to Agnes Pompa seemed like the best solution or best thing we could do to celebrate what she meant to the area as well. So it was a win-win-win-win-win in so many multiple ways, and I did not fall on my face playing pickleball. I am happy to announce. And then Swimming Under the Stars, thank you to the fire police, to the fire department members that aren't fire police that volunteer, to all the DPW guys that came out on their Saturday night, whether paid or not, still their Saturday night to help out set up, because they had to delay their setup thanks to the Friday evening debacle of weather we had. It was just a great event again, to see the pool deck filled, people dancing on it, including me. And Anna, if you send anybody that video, I will disown you.
I have it.
And you. But nonetheless, it was just great to have everybody out there. Again, attendance was right up on par with the last couple of years, and it was perfect weather. Family Fun Day is a week from yesterday. Everybody pray right now, no rain. Last I saw 2 inches was in the forecast, but I've seen that change before to the next day or the day before. That actually was supposed to happen this past Saturday, and then it moved completely out of the way for our event. So let's keep praying that we have no rain on Sunday and a lot of fun going on in Front Street and around Front Street. I think that's it from me, although we did have our TAP CMAQ discussion. If you want to take it from there, you'll probably be better to describe what happened with respect to, we didn't get the grant for our TAP CMAQ grant application. We took part in an after view meeting, basically to say, hey, what do we do right, wrong, and different? What do we do next time to get a chance in a couple of years, or less than a couple of years, to get this? Bernadette, go ahead.
Yeah, so we had the meeting with folks that give kind of like an after interview, or what do you call it exactly? Something like that. Debrief, thank you, that's a good word. They really said that this year's applicants were highly competitive, and did point out, like, Ballston Spa had a pretty good application. The one thing they did want to just note was that the issue with the right-of-way with the rail line is kind of something that sets us back a little bit. So two things we should consider as a board is, well, I think we need to do 2 things simultaneously, that at least, and Frank, you might have to, I'm just saying, we gotta, you gotta agree with me.
You're always right.
I'm always right. We should pursue in that time before the application, speaking, really getting down with the the rails for the folks that are in charge of that to get kind of approval from them that we could, have right of way
Contract
access.
easement, et cetera.
Yeah, exactly, an easement. And then the other thing we should also consider is an alternate route. Say that does not work out by that time. I would hope it worked out by the next application, which is a little less than 2 years from now. But so really that was the main thing they flagged to us, and that was something that Labella flagged to us too early on. Overall, I think it's a good project. It's just a matter of figuring that out.
I think they also mentioned using the pre-application process to
Yes,
see budget
yeah. Yes,
and
thank
stuff
you.
like that as well.
Yeah, they said that our timelines and budgeting was not realistic for the type of project, especially again for that right of way. They thought our numbers were low and that our length of the project timeline was also a little short. So that was great feedback. I hope as a board we can work on that in the future. And yeah, it was good information. So.
Yeah, I'd like to just note that at the last meeting, I requested and you agreed to have Liz Cormos, who wrote the grant, go to this meeting. It would have been respectful to allow that to happen. Immediately after the meeting, you told her no. I also requested, you didn't respond to me either, but Liz Cormos wrote the grant. She should be given the opportunity to listen to the feedback. It is extremely disrespectful and rude. And it's also does the village a disservice because she is an incredible volunteer who is willing to write grants, and she would have asked questions and learned things that potentially could help this village moving forward. So that was a strictly political move by you, and I feel very disrespectful and unproductive towards the village.
So I'd like to address that. I never agreed to that. It was something that you had in your mind. I never said yes. So please stop putting words in my mouth. I never agreed. I said nothing to that. I said nothing to that.
You nodded a yes.
I kind of was just like, okay, Ben. I often do that because we go on rants and we just kind of like, okay, Ben. That's not an affirmative yes.
I made a request and she should have been allowed to go.
Both, please.
Please let me finish. I never affirmatively agreed to that. She no longer is on this board. She does not work for this board.
Yeah.
She's not an employee.
She wrote the grant.
And thank you. And thank you for that.
Oh,
but she is no longer on this board. She's not an employee of this village. I stated that to her. I never ever agreed to your forced, invitation. So please stop with that narrative. You often do that. You often put words.
Now you're putting words in my mouth. You often do this. You often do that.
You do, Ben. It's on record.
Okay.
Oh, I can go back to the videos. So, but
dozens
anyway,
of
I'm
hours
done.
on this grant,
Okay, folks,
and she should have been
it
given
is
the
mayor's
opportunity
announcements,
to
Ben.
hear the feedback.
Ben.
That was rude.
That is mayor's announcements. I try to be realistic and giving you guys an opportunity. I asked you
Yeah, that's fine.
for my report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nonetheless, I also want to raise that we did bring up the question of town of Ballston's tax CMAC about the pathway for the walkway across the street from the high school entrance to the other part of Ballston Avenue. And a couple of things. First, they suggested that we wouldn't have been necessarily filching off each other's ability to get successful approvals in those. So they actually said in the future, go ahead and support each other. We asked if tying them together in some way would have been beneficial. They said no, because then, we don't know where the money is exactly going or how it's being used by which municipality type situation. Okay, so noted. I do know that the town of Ballston is doing their own. I did talk to Superintendent Duca with town of Ballston. They're going to be doing their own debrief on theirs, so they know. And I believe that they're going to be searching for other alternatives to get that moving, because it is important for them to make sure after 2 near misses, or 2 hits, but no fatalities, thank God, over a couple of years, that will get resolved in some way, shape, or form. So the town of Ballston is working with them on that. We'll stay involved to the degree they need us to help out in any way, shape, or form, obviously, because those are our kids in their community. Even though it's just outside of our jurisdiction, it still matters to us. So we asked plenty of questions and took up a lot of their time, and it was all relevant stuff that we experienced in the process. So thank you to Bernadette for being on that call with me. And let us move on here to the treasurer's report, which I had up on my screen, and I did. Yes, I did. And so it's towards the bottom, so I'm going to quickly get down to there. And there, okay. Balance sheet, LGSS finished our July financial reports. They've been sent out to the board of trustees for utilities. We have had a flood of water and sewer payments coming into the village office starting on August 1st. We're working on processing them and posting them to residents' accounts. Grant money, the village received money for the grant on behalf of the village, the Ballston Police Department. Money was deposited by ACH on July 15, 2024 in the amount of $236,902.17. Thank you to Chief Bush and Scotts Trade for his assistance in getting that grant. That's a lot of money. Foreign fire insurance tax, as we were talking earlier, we received money from the Department of Financial Services in the amount of $43,873.88, as well as money from the town of Ballston in the amount of $5,038.36, both of which will go to the two Ballston Spa Fire Department companies as they are payments for fire or foreign fire protection. Sales tax, July receipts were 1.96% higher than July receipt reports from last year. Year to date for the first 5 months was up by just over 2.7% from the previous year's first 5 months. Village of Ballston Spa received just under $120,000 in July. There's some analysis that's provided there as well. I'm not going to go through all that for you. For fiscal year 2024, you saw that we had done some budget transfers to finalize after review by LGSS. Those were approved, obviously, earlier. Liaison reports. See, now this is where I get messed up on the ordering of seats because I usually go over there, but we'll start with Mary again, just for the order of norm here.
Okay. You covered a lot of what's going around the village, so thank you for that. Ballston Spa seniors, in case people don't know, they have open bingo every Thursday after their noontime meeting. They have their committee meetings.
Can I go play bingo with them?
You can. It's open to the public.
I'm so in on that. Come on now.
The library is going to start packing up this room this week. They're going to be doing it on Thursdays and Saturdays to prepare for the renovations. And again, if you haven't checked out Hoopla, check it out. You can download books, movies. Family Fun Day, as the mayor said, is this Sunday. The refrigerators will be performing at 6 and volunteers are still needed. And I think at this point, if somebody shows up the day of, we have lots of places where we can direct them. They can just go to the information booth and Ray Otten will be there to tell them where they're needed most. And there will be a dunking booth. So if anyone is interested.
I'm literally on my diet because of this. Okay, let me tell you that right now. I wanted to get crumble cookies today, and I had half of one total because oh my god, and butter. It's nothing but butter. I swear to God.
And the Kelly Park Courts dedication was very nice, and it was nice to see the Pampa kids there, and we thank them and everyone who worked to put all of that together. So thank you.
Thank you. Just a quick note that the library is working right now on their RFP process for their first phases of the renovation to be done. We'll be hearing a lot more about that soon. Mary and I have sat in on a meeting with library board and architects to talk about next steps and how to proceed and everything else. Notices are out. Questions are being answered with any potential bidders. And so they are moving forward with that operation right now. And so stay tuned. Like I said, we'll have a presentation coming soon about exactly what's next in those situations. Should also state with respect to DPW information, since Sean isn't here, stop signs should be going or should be actually unveiled. I think they may actually be in place currently on High Boulevard at Chapman. Don shaking his head back there. Somebody hit Don. No, they are going to have a stop ahead sign. Thanks to the county letting us use those for now. We'll have new stop lines in place as well. We will have middle of the street or middle of the intersection stop signs to be clear that you must stop. This is new. Here it is type of situation. So where the pedestrian signs kind of used to be, now will be a big old stop sign, well weighted. So hopefully they don't find legs and walk away themselves somehow. But those are going in. We had to get some clearance to make sure they were, stop signs were visible. Any sign was visible over there because the trees were actually blocking those areas, and we had some very deficient trees in terms of health, and so it kind of killed a couple birds with one stone scenario over there. But the stop signs, again, are not intended for speed reduction. They're intended for pedestrian safety. I had a story conveyed to me last week that somebody that is on one of our boards nearly got run over again on Hyde Boulevard. I'll be putting out something on Facebook tonight about this. There will be soft enforcement going on over the next couple of weeks to make sure people are abiding by these signs. And we'll be making sure the speed signs are getting moved to areas where you would assume normal speed would resume. So not right on top of Chapman, but further down in the direction type of situation. So that's what's up with stop signs. And DPW obviously has been kind of going bonkers with different things that have been going on in different ways. They're gearing up for paving. And so stay tuned for that. We'll have the list of streets coming very soon for those wondering what streets will get paved. There's your DPW report as I have it. How'd I do? Thank you. Appreciate that. Ready to that.
So I'm gonna spend most of my time just on the fire department. So within the month of July, they had 44 emergency calls, 15 which were general alarms in the fire district, including one working fire structure fire in the town of Milton. And for many of you all know that individual did not survive despite the efforts of our fire department. They really worked hard and they're heartbroken. But that is the reality, so we have to share that. Additionally, they had 9 mutual aid structure fire responses requests for motor vehicle accidents, along with 16 other responses. Overall, more than 700 man hours of emergency response was given by our volunteers. And for the whole year, they've been responding so far to 280 responses, and that's 3,500 man hours. It's an incredible amount of time that they give us. They have had a department drill last month, and also 2 individual company training drills, which is 120 man hours of training. Just to update you on our equipment, engine 142 is currently out of service. That's the union, one of the union engines, and it has a transmission issue. Engine 143 has completed its annual testing and inspection with that approval of $26,000 repairs that it needed from our last meeting. That is they're just having to, they've had to replace tires. There is some tank corrosion. Also, engine 141 completed its annual testing and inspection. One thing for those that went to the fair, I hope you all went and got a maple milkshake. Our fire department has a presence at our fairgrounds. They this year built a model sort of bedroom to teach children what are escape techniques, what to do when faced with a fire. They had 1,200 children participate in that, which is awesome. Thank you to Curtis Lumber and Ballston Carpet and Tile and Aladev's Building Supplies for the supplies that they built this little room. We got to take a look at it. Councilman Delnicki and I got to look at it on Saturday while we were waiting for you.
While I was learning the importance of that.
He was at the fire set in Milton, so I didn't mean it to sound
No,
flippant.
no.
Sorry.
It was ironic that I was kind of learning the reality of exactly that subject.
This will take a little bit longer, so I hope everyone has a little bit of patience. So currently, we do not have fire contracts for the future with town of Milton and town of Ballston. So the fire department, the chief specifically wanted to highlight how critically needed that is. It provides the funding necessary, obviously, for purchasing needed equipment and the apparatus for safe and effective firefighting operations. I want to read a couple of things that he wrote specifically. It is time for the officials to resolve their differences and work through the contracts to obtain the funding needed for the safety of the citizens within the respective communities. it is something, our contracts are important because it's really necessary. Our fire department covers areas beyond the village. We're contracted usually to do so, the town of Milton and town of Ballston. And honestly, they are constantly at those other sites outside of our village. You know, there's some buildings that need a lot of attention. So, because they're larger apartment buildings and there are calls there, so they're often there for fire safety and also for emergency sort of medical stuff. I know they've been there for once in a while for that. The village, our fire department has received federal FEMA grants money for the past 2 fiscal years for over $300,000 to a team that needed equipment, and they've been able to do so ironically because they've been able to demonstrate the federal government that they don't have adequate funding because of our contracts that currently the towns are not meeting the kind of the reality is of what it is these days, that what it costs to serve their fire districts, and also it's just expensive. How much was our one truck that we had $1 million?
940,000 for the pumper, and then when we have to do a ladder truck, it's gonna be between 2.25 and 2.4 million for the ladder truck.
Yeah. So these are costly things. And then I just wanted to read 2 paragraphs specific to what Chief Bayshore had shared with me. We have provided the budget numbers on numerous occasions for the funding needed to operate and maintain this fire department currently with a standard set for us. We have to look to the future for financial planning to be able to afford equipment and apparatus replacement. The current proposed contract numbers will not provide adequate finances to replace apparatuses that is needed to protect our community. We respond to emergencies at all hours of the day and night at great cost and sacrifice to our personal lives and our families, affecting our health and mental well-being. Our firefighters protect our communities for no personal financial gain, and when you demonstrate that you don't care about funding the fire department, the subliminal message that you are sending is that you don't care about the service we provide. We do this job because we care about our community. That is all. Those are strong words to share, but it has been kind of a frustrating year trying to sort this out.
Let me,
Yeah.
So let me update, because he wrote that a couple weeks ago. Last week, I spoke with somebody who I actually think is an absolute rock star, Dave Yurkovich, who is the comptroller in the town of Ballston. He's had experience in the Boston area, I believe, from our conversations, where obviously firefighting is a major, familial scenario and everything else. It's important out in that zone. And he has said to me on a couple of occasions in these conversations, and has worked with us with even the town of Milton, that they want us to have the newest equipment because they want us to be safe in terms of our fire department, and they want their residents to be safe. And being anything short of that risks both of those. And I really appreciated that from him. He stated last week that they will be levying most likely $1.16 per thousand, up from $1 a thousand next year in taxes for fire purposes. Now, that doesn't mean they'll remit the 116, because we still have to get to a contract to collect that. Their biggest qualm ultimately is that town of Ballston does not want to pay more for the same fire service as the town of Milton does. I get that. I can't dispute that approach or mentality about it, especially if their contracts are in lockstep time-wise now, which they are. So it's an interesting point, and we appreciate the fact that they will remain out of lockstep this current year, the dollar versus the 96 cents you heard earlier. Town of Milton, I had a good call for the first time in a little while with Supervisor Ostrander about the topic last week. And they are hell-bent on not adjusting because of their tax cap. This is one of the challenges that fire protection districts run into throughout the county and state, because a fire district such as, let's say, Rock City Falls, great guys, don't take anything personal when I just bring up a sake of example here, because it could have said Burnt Hills just as much in Ballston if I wanted to, Harmony Corners, whatever, whichever one, okay? But yeah, pick anyone. They name their own price after basically doing their budget and going through their own approval process. And who shows up for a fire budget vote at the end of the day with the fire district? The firefighters or families. It's approved. As long as it's semi-reasonable, it is what it is. Fire protection districts, which are normally maintained by villages like ours, I think Schuylerville as well, they do as well, and others out there. We basically have to go through our own tax cap as a village and the tax caps of those we're contracting to provide services for in this type of situation. So Town of Milton obviously wants to protect their taxpayers because tax cap scenarios, I get that. It's a challenge. I actually had a call with the state comptroller's office last week to ask for advocacy to stop this shenanigan with the tax cap. This was never intended when the tax cap was created. While the comptroller only follows the law, they can be great advocates in a scenario like this, and they are actually somewhat interested in maybe pursuing it. They're going to be looking at it internally to help give a town like Milton the ability to not have to go through that meat grinder of a tax cap situation. That obviously won't resolve immediately. It could resolve in the next year to 2 years. So we have to still deal with what's on the table right now, either way. They did, I believe, save some money on their highway garage bids, which will lower their debt service. And I have asked Supervisor Ostrander, at least, even we have to play the year-by-year game at this point, what can you provide us next year? They're going through their budget process almost right now, and we're going to be staying on top of them. And he promised that getting back to me to say what they can hopefully move forward with in a principle that would be hopefully somewhat adjacent to what the town of Ballston intended to do, which is go $1.16 for the next 4 years, staying stable at what we call a pop and stop method, basically at the rate. And they may decide to go up year by year instead. But long story short, we're trying. We're trying to work within the confines of the challenges that the state presents us, that economics present us generally, and the needs of our fire department. I'm hopeful that we will arrive there soon. We will stay on top of this and make sure that we get the best possible result for our village and for our firefighters and for those we protect even outside of our village, because we abide by our mutual aid agreement 110%. And because of our membership, we're often the first to show up with others' fires out there. But we will abide by our mutual aid agreement. And I've told the county that Mike Stanley, who is the new director for fire protection for the county, we had a great conversation about that. We abided by that fact in that conversation, and we'll continue to do so. And the county is monitoring the situation as well, because they know the importance of the Ballston Spot Fire Department. So thank you. Anything else?
Mainly just a reminder about the SPPA is always busy with a bunch of stuff and wonderful things to add to the community. We want to thank them for their ice cream social. That was a wonderful time. I think a lot of folks had a lot of fun. It was good weather, didn't get pushed off in the end of the summer. So thank you for, heading that up. And I was told by another board member that Liz Biddle is awesome, so I'm sharing that. She's
not just a rumor.
That's part of my report. But I believe there's some more concerts left, right, on Thursdays.
We have the Tuesday reschedule.
Yeah.
Oh, geez, yeah.
We just voted on
Yeah,
that,
that one too. You look at the agenda. And mainly just, reminders about the farmer's market. It's open Thursdays from 4 to 7 and Saturdays from 9 to 1. I've been eating more cookies there than you have, apparently, at Crumble. And that's all for my report. So thank you.
I'm still feeling that cookie back in the kitchen.
Have a cookie?
It's,
Bothering?
oh, it's, it was
I've never
butter.
had it.
It's like the
They're
size of a
this big.
softball.
Oh,
Huge.
Oh, it was butter upon butter. That's all I can tell you.
I've never had them.
The first one I ate was the Kentucky whiskey or Kentucky cake butter cookie this week. And they put the emphasis on butter. Sorry, go ahead.
I just want to start talking about Park and Tree Board and the Wiswell Parks survey that was concluded a few weeks ago. There are 157 respondents, and generally, or universally, there's positive response. I'll just go through some of the answers. How do you feel about the overall park design? Over 90% were either approved or were neutral. They asked, do you feel the movement of the natural spring is a positive improvement for the park? 67% approved, 28% neutral. Do you like the updated pavilion? So we're taking neutral as like, sure, it's fine, whatever. Do you like the updated pavilion with seating and storage space, stage space? 82% approved, 11% neutral. How do you feel about the proposed footpath? 71% approved, 18% neutral. So very small number say disapproved only. Are you excited to have kiosks that display historical information about the village? 78% approved, 17% neutral. Are you in favor of trees softening the edge of the park along Walnut Street? 79% approved, 14% neutral, 7% opposed. Do you feel the design is conducive to everyday passive use in the park? 78% approved, 15% neutral. And do you feel the design is conducive to year-round activities in the park, such as farmers market, other vendor events, winter holiday events, car shows, etc.? 75% approved, 15% neutral. And then, are you a resident inside the boundaries of the Village of Ballston Spa? 64% said yes, 31% no, but they live in town of Ballston, Hilton, or Malta, outside the village boundaries. So overall, I think the Park and Tree Board and their consultant has come up with a good design that people are happy with. And I know, Frank, you're going to talk about next steps. Yep. Eventually in this agenda. She quickly just wrote, Caitlin, the chair, the Park and Tree Board wants to thank everyone who participated in the Wiswell Park Master Plan Survey. Feedback was overwhelmingly positive, and they are happy to be working on the next steps toward improving the park. The Park and Tree Board wants to thank the village for recognizing the efforts and contributions to improving they want to thank the village for recognizing their efforts, Park and Tree Board's efforts and contributions to improvements in Kelly Park, and for including them in the event last Saturday. They were very excited about the addition of the pickleball and basketball court at Kelly Park, and encourage everyone to go and check them out. As far as the Arts Committee, at their last meeting, they had about 4 pages of chock full of things they're up to, many events that have come and gone in collaboration with multiple other organizations in town. The next big event is Sounds of Summer concert at Brookside Museum. It's August 25th. 6 to 7:30 p.m. and it'll be a jazz concert. So everyone is encouraged to attend that. And the next meeting of this Committee on the Arts is August 21st at 7 p.m. And one question they have, and I don't know if we want to talk about it now or later, is they're not sure where to meet once this library space is closed. So
we're case-by-case basis trying to work with groups that haven't reached out to us in the offices, and we're going to start to figure this all out over the next 6 to 8 months.
And speaking of fire, they have 2 beautiful meeting rooms upstairs. Is it ever possible for village affiliated groups to use those meeting spaces?
I would say upstairs, probably not. Downstairs would be more likely in general. We've got to start to figure out spaces in general, even police garage area. We're going to be doing some rotation on the 4 available spaces. We have the 2 firehouses, the police department building, and the village hall itself.
So the village, the firehouse meeting rooms are just too busy, or it's a secure space?
It's not ADA compliant, so we have a bunch of different problems there. So that's
Monday night is drill night for the fire department.
Yeah, so we run into a bunch of things, but yeah, have them reach out to us. We were going to work with them to make sure we can get the right solutions for this stuff. Thank you. No problem. One thing I was remiss to thank also Supervisor Connolly in town of Ballston, who's working directly, obviously, with Comptroller Yurkovich. But the things that Comptroller Yurkovich has said really stuck with me over this time. But Supervisor Connolly has been obviously on top of this with us and working with the town of Milton. So I did want to make sure I gave kudos to everybody that deserves it in a scenario like that. Let's go to old business, and this is just going to be a quick overview. CDTA changes. This reflects the change of the crosswalk that was originally going to go from Doubleday Woods Drive across the street, across Route 67, to which we kind of warned CDTA folks, hey, this is a little too close to a blind curve. They moved it down to where we suggested to the McMaster intersection. And I just signed the paperwork the other day to get our permit in for the Rosewood Manor.
Thank God. Oh my God.
Yeah, literally on
2 years.
Thursday. So sorry, it's been so crazy. I haven't had a chance to recap to you guys even getting that. I didn't even know that people was coming lately.
What's the timing on that?
No idea. I mean, we'll be getting that in, and then the state will tell us what to do from there. So I don't know. We'll stay tuned. We'll get more.
But
info.
the permit was approved.
The permit was placed in, the request officially for the permit to say that we're ready to do the work, let us do the work, or do the part you have to do state.
So I thought the permit went in already.
We were asking for permission to move from the spot they had recommended up just a little bit.
Didn't that happen like 6 months ago?
Dave had turnover. We lost our number one connection there in Region 1, actually.
So we just turned in the permit.
We turned in the official permit, so this actually moves it fast now compared to where we were, because they will act on it now. So, yeah, welcome to, ask Sean sometime. I'm sure he'll share more
They
stories.
can't act on it until they get the permit, right?
Well, they got it.
application.
They've got it now. And so anyway, CDTA changes include the bus shelter at Doubleday Woods Drive, behind the sidewalk area where the bench is basically. We've already seen the movement of the stop itself. I see Karen Avanaria shaking her head as they had asked for maybe some advanced movement on that, especially with track season upon us right now. Off of Malta Avenue and down now to the Reshop and El Turco Village parking lot. When they do the construction, they'll consolidate just briefly to Van Buren stop, and then obviously put the bus shelter in again behind the sidewalk. We'll work with them on the small changes needed there, and that will resolve that. And that's about it. So you saw some construction documents. They were in black and white, obviously, in the attachments. Maybe need to see the colorized versions. Let me know. I think that Terry sent everybody here the colorized versions as an additional attachment the other day. But thanks to CDTA for acting on this. They too have had a lot of turnover, and so that's slowed the process a little bit, but they are acting on it. While I'm in that neck of the woods, Ellie, congratulations to the Bio Museum on the Visitor Center sign. Looks wonderful. Yep. So thank you for letting us know about that as well. Wiswell Park next steps. You heard Ben talk about the survey. Caitlin and I with Jennifer, we all sat down to talk about, hey, what should happen next year? What do we need to be able to act next? Blowout of the design with specs is going to be necessary so that we can move RFPs and bids forward for some of the more major work, including the infrastructure work, finishing up the work with the stone piece of the pipe, sewer pipe that's underneath there, getting the water pipe moved and getting electricity placed in the right spots where we need it ultimately. In the spring, most likely we will have an RFP done in time for the spring for the new pathway, the paving blocks, bricks, whatever you want to call it, or however that we choose to end up going in that direction. So getting that bid out ultimately, getting the gazebo replacement, starting some of the planting of trees. We don't think we're going to knock off everything in the spring to get done, because we want that stuff done in time for the farmers market and the other activities throughout the summertime in the park, especially Belmont Park 2 in Saratoga, being done for that. So we'll have a window of time for a couple months to get things done. Then at the end of the season and the beginning of the next season, we will complete anything else we see as necessary work on. This too will allow us not to necessarily hire a main contractor, which should save us some money, because we can knock out individual aspects of this in order and have a much better approach at the financial aspect of this, I think. So first things first, Studio A needs to blow out that design so that we have those specs. What you saw was always a conceptual design. Now we'll get the nuts and bolts down so that we have blueprints essentially hand people and say, go bid this out. That's all I got in old business. There is no new business. Public comment on any issue for 3 minutes. Let me just say again to anybody in Zoom, because we have seemed to have less public comment in here in the room lately. Now's the time to raise your hand again on Zoom if you have something to add for your 3-minute public comment on any issue. Liz, with her hand up, go ahead.
Liz Cormos, 89 Hyde. I was very disappointed to hear the amounts in the contract for the fire department. Those are the same amounts they were negotiated years ago. I mean, with inflation, what it is, they couldn't, I mean, it sounds great that next year, but this year the costs are up. I mean, I think the fire department should consider going independent and becoming a district and being able to, if we can't deliver for them the kind of reimbursement they need, from the towns, because $2.5 million for a new ladder truck, that's not gonna fall on us. So it's not only that they're not getting paid fairly by the towns, it's gonna fall on us. So I just can't believe that those rates are what they are, given what inflation's been. On the tapped CMAC, I was happy to hear that they thought it was good. I'd like to see the village move forward on surveying, the providing actual surveys. We don't have surveys in this village that we can say, here, this has been, these roads have been surveyed. So, the right of way, as I understood it, looking at the maps that was sent to me by the railroad, was that the sidewalk would be in our right of way. Do we still have to get some sort of permission or permit if we're crossing their tracks? We might, that might be what's missing, but I think you should check into that. And I was happy to hear that they said it was no problem cross supporting, because we didn't get one recommendation from Supervisor Duca, because he was afraid that it
Superintendent.
was going to
Superintendent.
Duca, because he was afraid it was going to hurt his application in Ballston. So I'm glad that, and as far as the estimates being low, that was Labella. That was their estimates. So maybe we need to have them put a little bit more into estimating. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room? Gina?
Gina Morosi, 10 Old Brewery Lane. The banners finally went up for the Hope for Children. There are 2 in Wiswell Park, 1 in Kelly Park. They were delayed, so we didn't get to put them in until this past Saturday. So I'm asking for, we were supposed to have this display removed by the end of August. I'm asking for a 1-month extension on that so that people can actually see the banners.
I think our general purview on these things is, as long as it's out of the way by the time car show comes along, I think that's the general thing that people have been making sure those displays are going by.
Okay.
So we'll figure this out. I get what you're saying, and I think the
Yeah,
rest
we
of the
just
board
spent
does.
all that money on the banners, and I hate to have, you gotta stop hitting that. I hate to have them up for a week and a half and then they have to come down. So I was looking for the extension on that, because we had this discussion before.
Okay, well, there was no official action voted on anyway, so. it
okay.
was-
There was, but I'm fine with the extension. We did vote
Yeah, no, then it was,
on signs.
it was short. The extensions were no's in the end, so it was no.
What? No, the signs,
Oh, the
we
signs themselves?
approved through the end of August.
Did we actually approve the sign?
I don't
Yeah.
remember.
We
Okay.
did.
I
But
apologize.
That's all right, we can,
Yeah, okay.
So I'd like to extend it if that's okay. Like I said, we just spent all that money on the banners. It wasn't our fault that the company was so backed up.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anna?
Stanko, 32 Kent Street. When you're talking about the parks again, I know I've brought this up a couple of times before. I really think that might be important to have some benches with a memoriam for the 2 past mayors that we've recently lost in the last couple of years. I don't know whether that's a village thing, whether it's a park and tree board thing, whether I don't know who's in charge of that, but I just really think that that's important.
Email me a reminder on that, please, if you can.
Sure.
No, I appreciate that, because I'll lose track. When you're right, you're absolutely right on that one.
The other thing is, I did post this on Facebook, and I know some of us are not friends on Facebook, and that's okay. While we were at, and I do have a picture of the mayor doing the Macarena.
video,
While we were
thanks.
at the village pool, I was talking to Frank and Bernadette, and this woman just came running up profusely thanking them for the village events, how important these village events are, how much her family enjoys these village events, that they are free and she can bring her family and not go broke doing that. So I just wanted to let everybody know. I mean, I know that the budget sometimes seems high. You know, we're always working on getting sponsors and stuff, but it really, really is super important for those families that cannot afford to take their family to the fair. They can come to Family Fun Day and have a good time. They can go to the village pool and swim until midnight and eat a free hot dog. The kids love it. That was the biggest crowd. I've been going there since my kids were this big.
Couldn't keep up on the food.
Yeah, that is the biggest crowd I have seen in well over a decade. It was huge. So thanks for sponsoring that, and I will email you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room? Riatin? Why do I call you by your last name and I never say Anna Stanko? I don't know. Just noticed that, so I said that. Like I said, like Millie too, so.
Riatin, 16 Millbrook Avenue. A couple of things. Before anybody looks at some of the little gingerbread figures that we did for Hope for Children and says, oh my God, they lost all their color. Well, I'm very well aware of it. I took samples of those that did lose color down to our friends at Curtis Lumber, spoke with their paint guys and said, what did I do wrong? Because I put it on me. They said, well, what'd you do? And I told them. And they said, well, you allowed them to use anything to decorate with. You did a great job trying to spray paint them and, you know, seal them, and they'll be there for 40 years because of that. But some of those washable markers and whatever else they used do not weather well. Okay, so I said, give me a recommendation. He said, the best thing you can do is use a solid color stain. And then you don't have to worry about sealing them because they will be sealed. And if you get it in red, blue, and yellow, then they can mix any colors they want. So I said, all right, so you got 4 schools that would be using them. Yeah, that's like 12 gallons of paint, not an excessive amount. In talking with Doug Ford, he goes, well, as he looked at his shirt and said, if you use Valspar, I can probably get you some help. So next year, that's what we're gonna do. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Curtis.
Thanks, Doug.
And they also supply they will supply the wood again next year. And I can get a much earlier start on it, so we'll have them again. Second thing, I heard a lot of 5 foot, 10 foot, 15 foot. Carla, you know what you're talking about. Okay, I don't care what others say.
The bar says you're right.
I was in public safety for a lot of years, 1 or 2 anyway. And I don't know if any of you, a couple of you are older than me, most are a year or 2 younger. I don't know if you remember a guy named Gomer Pyle and Barney Fife. They used to be deputies. They used to tell somebody, move along. And the people didn't walk out into the street. They walked down the sidewalk. When our police officers say, you're blocking this, you need to move along, people aren't going to be pushed out into the street. They're going down the sidewalk.
20 seconds, right? 20 seconds.
20 seconds. And lastly, Bernadette, you mentioned something about a young lady that did some grants for us for the fire departments.
Julie Bourbon.
Maybe she'd be a good one to work with you. At least she was successful.
Thank you, Ray. Anybody else in the room? Karen.
92 Milton Ave.
Just point towards you.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Right breaks everything, don't worry.
Karen Evan, 92 Milton Ave. I just want to shout out Saratoga County Fair, all the people that set that up, all those people working hard. It was a wonderful event. There was a lot of people that came into our village, a lot of positive interactions with so many people during that whole time during the fair, and it was great to see the Ballston Spa PD there and walking around. And I just want to also shout out to the Ballston Spa PD because I think they're doing a wonderful job of trying to keep everyone safe and following all the rules and helping us all out, and they're really doing a great job, and we want to just make sure that we appreciate them and shout out to them. Sometimes we don't always hear that positive to the police.
It was nice running into you on Saturday night. I think it was a fair as well, and Dave Aveneers as
And a
well.
shout out to Cunningham's Ice, that's one of our sponsors.
Yeah, Cunningham's Ice, indeed,
Thank you.
great local business for us.
Yes.
Anybody else in the room? Nothing on Zoom? And so, other business, including but not limited to board response to public comment. Mary, anything on your side?
Nothing.
Bernadette? Ben?
No, other than maybe we do want to make a motion to extend the life of the signs, because we have-
Motion
to extend the.
till
To
just
allow-
before, a week before the car show. How's that? Which is
All right, I'll make that
basically
motion.
a motion, so it's a motion to allow the Hope for Children Everywhere banners to remain in the parks that they currently appear in until October 11th. Ben makes that motion. Yes? Second, anybody? Trustee Fandesa, and discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, hold on, 90 seconds to the crowd. Anybody want to say anything? Great. All in favor? Opposed, motion carries. That's it for you. That topic, and anything else? Just a correction on two things during public comment. Town of Ballston, I think, was when you were trying to negotiate 3 years, they were actually going in for 95 cents at one point, and it became $1. So Ballston's been locked in at $1 for a while, from what I've seen on rates. Town of Milton went from 36 cents up to 96 cents over the last 5 to 6 years. That's some of the interesting behind the scenes things you have to remember when you're talking about that stuff. But as you know, Chief Ashore says, they've gotten us down the field. Now let's get to the goal line. Ultimately, it won't necessarily be parity with some of the districts, fire districts, but it's got to be something north of the current number. That conversation is being had and continues to be had. Also, with respect with respect to some of the surveying questions and rights of way questions, one of the things that we had put into our proposal for the Tonko federal money included making sure we got better knowledge and mapping for the sidewalks so that we could do what we needed to do as a village with certain areas. That could be one of them as well. So that's an open possibility depending on how much money we get from the Tonko federal money.
What's
So
that money?
it's a federal budget scenario. So when the federal budget's done, he's fighting for that allocation ultimately.
So within the next year or?
Hopefully.
Okay,
Yep.
just thinking of the
Oh, yeah, they
timeline,
do it well in
seeing
advance for
that-
the next budget to be done, so. I think that's it, except for executive session. We do need an executive session to discuss the personnel matter. Action is expected to be taken. Can I get a motion to?
After, not during.
Not during, of course not. She's better than I am, let me just say that. Can I get a motion to go into executive session? Trustee Fandesa,
I'll second.
trustee Price Bush, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Everybody, please leave. Exit the building. And we will come back for anybody that's on the benches that wants to come back in. Okay, we are back from executive session. It is 9:25 PM. Thank you for everybody's patience. At this time, can I get a motion to accept the following statement? Resolved that pursuant to the village's policy against discrimination and harassment, the board hereby designates the ethics board to sit as an appellate panel on the appeal of an unnamed individual. Trustee Fandesa,
I'll second.
trustee Price Bush. There will be no further discussion on this matter due to the nature of it. I will take the roll call vote under the circumstances. Trustee Price Bush,
Yes.
trustee Fandesa,
Yes.
trustee Baskin,
No.
Mayor Rossi votes yes. It is a 3-1 vote. As such, the motion carries. Can I get a motion that the vouchers be audited and the meeting be adjourned at 9:26 p.m.?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa,
I'll second.
trustee Price Bush, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Everybody have a good night. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.